Teaching others, because when I first got into the healthcare field, people overlooked me. I was really a ninth grade dropout who had no education, but I was determined to make something of myself for my baby. So Motor City matched the funds I put into my business. They awarded me $20,000. So now I'm able to focus solely on first step healthcare training and give it everything it needs. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the week that was. Happy Black Friday, happy post-Thanksgiving. Hope you're sufficiently turkified and not in the Ottoman sense of the word. My name is Saeed Khan, and yes, another busy week, despite the fact that things tend to slow down a little bit during the holidays, but not the news. Joining us are, of course, our troika of attorneys, Bill Seikaly, Joel Sklar, Steve Fishman. We have, of course, labor and community activist Barb Ingalls. We have veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and still in the Barca Lounger, being very chill and relaxed, the co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. Everybody flashing the Churchillian V for Victory signs, or maybe everyone saying, "I'm not a crook."
You can tell that Allan has taken advantage of the widespread availability of home cannabis delivery for people in his situation.
No, I am not. I'm afraid I'd lose my balance.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be very sober and not even drink for.
That's what the Barca Lounger is for.
Take your pain pills as prescribed.
Yes. I'm just doing Motrin and Tylenol right now.
And save any remaining painkillers for Bill's stocking above the fireplace.
Yes.
All right. I like you, Zoe.
Well, speaking of I'm not a crook, it seems as though there is some news when it comes to pissing off our neighbors. President-elect Donald Trump has announced tariffs against both Canadian and Mexican imports, rising to the level of 25%. Still not satisfied in understanding how tariffs really work and that the burden will be incurred by American companies. Undeterred by that, we also have a bit of pushback on the form of President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, who said, yeah, not so fast, Charlie, and got into a little bit of a narrative dispute where the Trump administration, or incoming Trump administration, apparently gave one version of what was the conversation between the two of them. And, of course, President Sheinbaum, who tends to, even in her short tenure as president, have a far greater credibility level than the president-elect when it comes to telling the truth. So how is this going to affect us?
You wonder what it takes to have more credibility than Donald Trump.
I don't know. Let me ask the squirrel outside my house. But, so where are we going with this tariff war? And I mean, the fact that our adjacent neighbors are both getting dissed by this, this can't be good. Yes, Nancy.
I think what we're headed for is a form of Hungarian autocracy. All of this is revealed when you read farther down into the stories about these proposed tariffs, and you read that companies and industry groups can apply for exemptions from them. And I think it's pretty clear who's going to get the exemption. People who donate big time to the Republican Party. And, you know, this is a classic mob shakedown in a lot of ways. It's almost like paying protection on, you know, nice industry you got here. Would be a shame if anything happened to it. I mean, Canada, America Junior? I mean, what is their fucking problem with Canada? I guess it's just because they have a liberal prime minister, and they're not they're not coughing up enough. They're not kicking up enough to the boss.
I think
and several Stanley Cups, Nancy.
Yeah,
I think what it is with Canada is that they have so much oil that Trump thinks we can invade them and take over the country because they're wusses.
I'm sorry, they have so much oil and what
So much
now?
oil that Trump thinks that we can invade Canada and just take over. They're wusses, you know.
Hey, Allan, actually, speaking of which, I think you have a video about how Americans perceive the oil industry and the pick for Secretary of Energy.
President-elect Trump, of course, has vowed to increase production of oil and natural gas. Do you support his choice of Jed Clampett to lead the Department of Energy?
I don't know much about the guy.
But what you've heard, do you support?
What I've heard, I would support it. I think we need to get more domestic oil and gas here.
More Texas tea, black gold.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Trump naming former drug manufacturer Walter White as the head of the Food and Drug Administration? Do you support that?
I do support that, although I do not back any big farm agenda. I am all for JFK Jr. being in charge of some of our health-related FDA.
You're a fan of JFK Jr.
I am.
You know, I always wondered what happened to Miss Teen South Carolina. She really grew up nice.
That video and one other video we have goes to Nancy's point about, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and stuff like that. These people have no desire to understand what's going on, to stay informed. It doesn't matter. So no matter how much reporting goes on, these are the opinions and the ignorance that,
Well, I mean, look at all the people who, after the election, who are not, I was going to say not illegal migrants, but, were migrants themselves or from immigrant communities, who said, oh, he's not going to deport the bad ones. He's only going to deport the criminals. It's like, good luck with that. So,
well, I think Allan, I think we have a video about the deportations too.
We do.
In a new interview, Homan said he is putting together an extensive deportation plan and added that the priority will be, quote, public safety threats, national security threats, and fugitives. So it sounds like Trump's going to have to replace most of his cabinet.
Bill, I'm sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, you might ask the Chaldeans how that thinking worked out for them last time.
Well, Bill, actually, I think there's evidence now that shows that the conversion rate to Chaldeanism has dropped dramatically. So live and learn. So, I mean, one of the theories, though, and by the way, I understand that we import almost 80% of our produce from Mexico. So good luck
the rest
with that.
from Canada. Have you seen the East Side Glow at wintertime? It's amazing.
But Nancy, if you saw what Trump was eating on Trump Force One, it looks like produce is not really a priority for him.
No, not at all.
Yeah, Bill.
Wait a minute, and Kennedy. I mean, the guy who's so opposed to fast food and is going to be in charge of that picture was amazing for a number of reasons. I want to go back to this tariff issue. There are a couple of things that I think are fascinating here. Trudeau made a comment about, look, we understand that President Trump is somebody who needs to be managed, and we're working on that. One of the interesting issues is that most of the illegal immigrants in this country came not from Mexico, or didn't come from the Mexican border. They came from the Canadian border. A fact that maybe somebody whispered in Trump's ear, for God's sakes, because you'll never hear about it. Though I think Trudeau is talking about building a wall and making America pay for it. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I think that a lot of this is Trump trying to develop a potential exit strategy for some very bad ideas that he's going to implement on day one. And you notice that he said, until Canada and Mexico help stop this, that, the other thing. So I believe that, I do believe that Trump is an evil genius. Though I'm not quite sure about the genius part. I think that he may be using all of this as an exit strategy to get bad policy decisions. Because I don't look at. I used to represent the Ambassador Bridge Company. One of the things that I discovered during that representation was that auto manufacturers don't recognize the border. They have parts built in Canada and in Ontario. There's a direct line. If you impose these tariffs and it causes problems with material getting back and forth, you can shut down assembly lines in the United States and Detroit in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
This plan will not, I guarantee you, will not work as Trump is saying it. But Trump has a way of eking out.
Bill, didn't you also discover that it's not really a bridge?
No, I did not discover.
Okay, that's breaking news for you. Well, there's a theory that's out there that what Trump's real target here is actually China, that he wants to punish Canada and Mexico for having pretty good economic relations with Beijing. And this is, as you said before, it's a kind of a shakedown by proxy because Trump is risk averse to taking on China directly. He knows that that would be both economically and politically disastrous. So he's going after the low-hanging fruit on both sides of the borders.
I'm not so sure that's low-hanging fruit. I am not so sure. Look, I think the world, when it looked at the Trump administration last time, and then us removing Trump and putting in Biden, said, maybe we dodged a bullet. Maybe this was just an anomaly. This is not where the American people are going. This time, I think that the rest of the world may look at us and think, we can't trust the United States anymore. They're too fickle. We can't rely on them, and we can't use them as a base for trade. We can't use them as a base for protection, and we can't use them as a base for policy. That would have a devastating impact on us in the long run.
The tariffs. I was at the Detroit Economic Club when Trump was speaking recently, and he was talking about the tariffs and talking, and the business people were eating it up because his message was, I'm going to make sure that everybody builds in the United States, every foreign car maker. Nobody's going to, if they want to sell cars, they're going to have to build them here. I'm going to get, all the foreign car makers and stuff like that. And I think he's just going to fuck up things. And people, idealistically, it sounds like great. Oh, yeah, everybody's going to manufacture in America. It's not going to happen. I mean, there's so many parts be manufactured in Canada, in Mexico. It's not going to happen. It would take years to retool.
They offshored all the jobs for those parts, for the parts that are lightweight and labor intensive. I remember my friend Ron French did a big project for the Detroit News about 20 some years ago about wire harnesses. Okay, that's the piece of plastic that's stapled into inside the engine compartment of your car, and it carries the wiring, here and there. And it can't be done by a machine, or at least it couldn't be done by a machine then. It had to be done by not well-paid workers who, or rather not very skilled workers who just needed to bend these pieces. They were lightweight because it's just plastic. And he traced this one factory that went from the thumb to Mexico to somewhere in South America to Asia, China. It ended up in, I think the last place he found it was in Vietnam or something. It's someplace where you can get away with paying the absolute minimum, but you still need wire harnesses. So, I mean, this is what I mean about, they're going to apply for an exemption on the tariff for this particular part because they go in American cars, which are still largely made in the United States. I mean, what is this? This just seems like such naked corruption to me. It's not about building jobs back here. It's about enriching and entrenching the Trump administration and the Republican Party as it exists now, which is it's basically a criminal organization. Steve could tell us.
It seems to me, that populism is for simpletons. It doesn't allow for nuance. It's an easy sell populism, and that's what we're on. There's A to B seems direct. And you don't get to A to B, you have to get to A to Z, and there's all sorts of shit in the way. But populism is what's sold. Populism is what is accepted. It doesn't require deep thought. It's very easy, and it's typically misguided because it's very easy. It's not well thought out, and it doesn't look for consequence other than the ones that are desired. And so that's the philosophy that I think the voters have. Populism is great. Until the shit hits the fan and there's adverse consequences, people will learn. I guess populism, it isn't so great because it isn't nuanced. It doesn't take into considerations possible consequences that people know are going to come.
Right.
So I think that's the evil that we're under. That's the mindset that we're under.
Well, Joel, did you mark 2025 as the year that the Republican Party would abandon Edmund Burke and Adam Smith as its patron saints?
I don't know. It's 2020. I mean, it's I guess 16. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, it's.
I think it's interesting. You have the working class and some union members who shop at Walmart, and Walmart has been. And I don't know of late their practices, but for a long, long time, they've forced manufacturers to manufacture overseas to get their prices down low enough so that they could be, a supplier for Walmart. And I think people don't understand what's going on, and they just see a strong man who's going to bully the world and is going to make America great again. We have something here. It's just. Here's we'll play this video here.
I think January 6th is probably my favorite one.
You were there.
Oh yeah,
that's your number one. What made it your favorite one? What stood out from January 6th?
Well, aside from all the violence that was planned by the FBI and such.
Do you think were they Proud Boys and Oath Keepers?
No, they were Antifa, Black Lives Matter, ISIS, and MS-13.
Some of January 6th is perpetrated by ISIS? I mean, this is new.
MS-13, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, ISIS. Yes.
Lions and bears and tigers, oh my. Fish, we haven't heard from you.
I guess I would just be echoing the things you guys are saying. The thing that gets me the most is when Allan's showing these ones where these are people who not just voted for the guy, but are out there actively trying to stir up votes for him. The ability to ignore facts is just something that's so completely amazing to me. And you can't, that guy who was interviewing the guy, he could have never persuaded him in a million years that it was anybody other than Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and ISIS that prompted January 6th. You could stand out there all day long. And what all you guys are saying is exactly the most dangerous thing about this, is that there's no real facts anymore. And if there aren't any facts, then who knows what this guy's going to do. But I also agree. I was very impressed with the president of Mexico, the way she handled it and the way she stood up to him. These people in Europe and these people in other countries, they're not going to just sit there and take this shit. They're really not, So.
No.
I mean, just some simple facts here. I was reading an article about China that they now lead the world in advanced robotics and also advanced robotics manufacturing. So the American analysts that said, well, they've got too small of a population, actually, they don't need a large population. And the whole idea that America is going to get back any modicum of manufacturing base is absurd. And I think what Trump is doing, and I agree with you, Bill, that there's maybe an evil lowercase g genius thing going here, is that he realizes that these factories that China is building around the world in places like Canada and Mexico will also have that advanced robotics manufacturing. So I don't know how much of a firewall he's really putting up, but it seems that the firewall is more about companies than it is about people crossing the border at El Paso. Allan.
I mean, it's interesting in the auto industry. I mean, China is so far more advanced on the electric cars and manufacturing at much cheaper prices. GM's share of the market there is shrinking dramatically. We've got some, we've really got some competition on the worldwide, particularly the auto industry, on a worldwide basis. And I don't get Elon Musk, I don't get where it's all coming from. Here's a guy with EVs, and yet Trump is, railing against EVs instead of saying, how do we make it better? How do we make it more affordable? How do we get more charging stations out there? we're going to get killed in that market. And I don't know what's going to happen to one of the biggest manufacturers in industries in our country.
Well, Alan, speaking of killing, Tesla cars have been reported to have the highest auto fatality rate of any car.
Yes.
So I think you're more right than right on that one.
They can't. If one of those catches on fire, they can't even get at it. It's also completely like help proof.
It's a big battery.
It's right. I was walking down Main Street the other day, and there are people walking all over the place, and a Cybertruck came up, and people started laughing at it. And it was really funny. There's people standing on the corners going, "Look at that bullshit thing over there!" And I'm sure the guy got in thinking, "I'm so cool." And
it's nice because you can tell from any angle that person is a douchebag, whereas before you had to wait until it went by and you saw the Trump sticker on the back. But it's like it's really an advance in it's an advanced technology. It really is like a 360-degree advertisement for douchery.
Well, that's the beauty of it, Nancy, is you can tell that they're a douchebag because it's got those nice, like, sharp edges. Otherwise, before, on rounded edges, it was a little bit more difficult to discern who was a douchebag.
A friend of mine said that what you need to do is always say, "Oh, you have a nice Aztec." Yeah. That's so cool.
As a driver of BVs, as I started driving hybrids when they came out, and I converted to EV a couple of years ago. Though I want to make it clear for both my brothers have Teslas. I'm ashamed to say, and I bought them both bumper stickers that said, "I bought this car before I knew he was an asshole."
Are they on
I
the
did.
car?
Yeah, I did, so they can put it on their car. But look, here's the problem. Tesla really did get the EV movement going in this country. It was too bad it was Musk. These EVs are important. I think that Nancy has explained to us why Trump and Musk are aligned. Trump will find a way to pacify his banker Musk, and his little buddy, his mini me, if you will, and they'll work that out. But the problem is that if we ignore this issue, if we don't come up with alternative solutions to the internal combustion engine, if you don't believe in climate change and you don't believe we have a problem, go talk to farmers. These are real issues. They are serious issues.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with all these accidents is that Musk isn't concerned about that. He just wants to sell cars. He's got a great concept. He's got a great vehicle, great technology. The problem is multifaceted here. One, most people, if you've ever driven an EV, the acceleration on these cars is simply amazing. I will quickly admit that last year during the Dream Cruise, my wife and I were at a light on Woodward, and a guy in a Mustang revved his engines. I've never been able to beat anybody in a 5-liter Mustang. The light turned green, and I smoked him. It was very exciting. My wife
Did you have to go to confession
me if I ever did anything that stupid.
Did you go to confession? And
hell no, I was proud.
Okay.
That was no.
Bill, I think I know what I'm getting you for Christmas. I'm getting you a riding crop.
There you go. There you go. But here's one of the problems with these vehicles and accidents. Most drivers don't know how to handle a car that accelerates that fast. It's a lot of fun to do. We actually have a G meter in my Polestar, measures the G forces on acceleration. A lot of fun, it's very exciting, but it's real stupid to play with, right? So that's one of the reasons. The fire is another reason. This auto driving system has caused a lot of problems. People rely on it and go to sleep. Jeez. I mean, there's all kinds of problems that need regulation, and Trump is all about getting rid of regulation and giving immunities to manufacturers.
Right.
So it really is too easy to get a driver's license too. I'd like to point out.
I'm sorry, say again?
It's way too easy to get a driver's license. Anybody can have one. You could have stopped.
At my age, I don't want to hear these restrictions.
It's terrifying watching people drive.
So getting back to Walmart and the impact that the tariffs might have on it, it looks like Walmart is also responding to conservatives. And by the way, let's face it, Walmart was never the code pink patrons of America. But the fact that it is responding to a lot of conservative backlash, they have scrapped, as have other companies, their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And they're also now removing from their website and from their stores sales of products that are LGBTQ plus themed. So is this the big flinch by which America shifts its sort of
They are
cultural
going
and
to stick to
economic?
hiring white men. That'll solve everything.
I gotta say, I mean, I remember reading something. I think it was after that bullet-headed coward Jeff Bezos called. First of all, he like cut the testicles off of the Washington Post, and then he congratulated Trump on his victory. And somebody smart that I read, and I can't even tell who it was, pointed out that the real danger of autocracy is how many people bend the knee before they have to, because they feel like they have to get they need to be on that team. And Mark Zuckerberg was just at Mar-a-Lago kissing Trump's doughy
Horrific
ass.
what he said too.
Yeah, exactly. And so
the Morning Joe team went over to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, and so as far as whether this is, I mean, what to me it was like the DEI question was answered for me when I spent some time at the University of Michigan, and it was just pointed out. And when I was teaching at Wayne State, it's like a diverse class is a better class because you have more points of view, you have more brains with more experiences, more life experiences that are kind of coming to, or putting their power on the problem at hand. And the idea that they're just they're going to like get rid of a t-shirt with a pride flag, it's pathetic. I mean, it's I was not a Walmart shopper to begin with, but God, I wouldn't put a foot over the threshold now.
Bill,
I want to try and put some of these threads together. I agree completely with what Nancy said. I only want to add to it. This is evidence that government policies designed to impact social change for the better, inclusionary social change, from integration to tolerance of other sexual orientations, etc., work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to go back to what Joel had said earlier about the danger of populism. When these policies change, people who are complying and helping quickly jump off the bandwagon if it doesn't suit them for their own personal reasons.
Sure.
And it's a dangerous phenomenon. I'm not sure how you deal with it, but I'm waiting for Hallmark to stop. Hallmark movies have started doing all this interracial relationships and gay relationships in their movies. Somebody told me about it. I went, look, I think that's great, and I think it adds to the appeal of the channel, and I think it adds to the ability of people to begin to accept one another, which I think is important. But it can go away very quickly with a guy like Trump who endorses intolerance rather than tolerance.
Bill, I haven't even seen interracial greeting cards at Hallmark, so I mean that would be a far stretch.
Yeah,
so,
listen, I didn't believe it when the person told me this. I didn't believe it, but you can get on Hallmark on Demand and take a look. I'm very impressed because I believe that the people who need to see this stuff are watching things like the Hallmark Channel, and I think it's very helpful. These policies work if they're supported and given time. And until very recently, until actually the election of Trump, while there wasn't wholehearted support for these policies of inclusions, the Republican Party and Democratic Party had agreed fundamentally that there are certain things that we needed to work toward. We needed to work toward integration. We needed to do more in terms of acceptance. It's all gone now.
But a lot of this, young people right now, young people have grown up in this. And this is the part that these old guys can't deal with, because I mean, when I remember with great clarity, the first African-American teacher I had in Detroit, in the Detroit schools, it was Mrs. Ash at Holcomb Elementary. And because it was just so unusual. I mean, it was out of the blue. Kids now, they're used to everything. They're used to everybody. It's drag queen bingo and people on TV and their heroes and bands and stuff like that. There's no putting that back. And I think that this is where it's going to be hard in the next generation. This really can be viewed as the last gasp.
Barb, I want to point something out. While I completely agree with what you just said, because everything's on the table and everything's okay, another part of the problem is skinheads are coming back, and they were always lack of tolerance and extreme right-wing activity is also more tolerated. And you know, if you're a transgender person in this community and
they're scared,
you got to risk skinheads,
these people are terrified. But I also would point out that every one of these public exhibits of Nazism, people have come and pushed them back. And I think that that's what we can hope for, is that people, and the dreaded Antifa and people like that, who are going to say, oh, fuck no. You know, and they've been there forever, and they're still there, and it's hilarious, and the boogeyman of these people. But I think it is just going to be harder. And I agree. I mean, and every one of us have. Well, they don't know they've met a trans person.
No,
I think Barb, you're right. I think the things are going to get really hairy when ISIS decides it's not going to be bipartisan in its targeting. Actually, Allan, why don't we take a commercial break right now?
I love teaching others, because when I first got into the healthcare field, people overlooked me. I was really a ninth grade dropout who had no education, but I was determined to make something of myself for my baby. So Motor City matched the funds I put into my business. They awarded me $20,000. So now I'm able to focus solely on first step healthcare training and give it everything it needs. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
So locally, we have a kind of a marriage of this public sector, private sector malaise that we were alluding to. Dan Gilbert and General Motors looks like they're seeking state funds in order to revamp the Renaissance Center. The plans seem to indicate knocking down the two satellite towers that are closer to the riverfront and going ahead and refurbishing the rest. And it looks like this whole thing is basically getting the taxpayer to pay for the moving costs to move GM into a Dan Gilbert property a little bit further up on Woodward. Missing something here? Allan.
I mean, look, I think it's insane. General Motors is wealthy corporation. Dan Gilbert's empire, wealthy, and they've got their hands out. I mean, we've seen it. You know, look, the Illiches with the arena had their hands out and got over $400 million. Where we see in San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors moved from Oakland. San Francisco built arena for $1.1 billion, all private money. The Palace was all private money. I think in Detroit, there was a point in Detroit where nobody wanted to be. And, the Illiches first came and built Foxtown. But now I think Detroit is a place where you can make money. And these people are making money. And I'm not sure why we are constantly giving these huge supplements to their projects.
Because they won't build them unless we give them the money.
Yeah.
Right. We're not going to do it. We have empty buildings everywhere in Detroit. You know, we need more buildings. We need more skyscrapers. We need more skyscrapers in the Hudson site. We need to tear down big buildings in the RenCen and then put up some other ones. And it's dizzying, and we have a homeless problem that's unbelievable. We have empty buildings everywhere, but we're going to build some more. And I will never understand why there's a single homeless person while there, like the FBI building over in Corktown. That ugly, I mean, it's a horrible, ugly building, but it's been empty for 20 years now. The one on Trumbull, not on Trumbull, on Howard.
Yeah.
Why are there, I mean, so
that's been the state
like
building. That's the state
for
building.
on one hand, laying people off because they're losing money, and on the other hand, helping tear down their building.
The one on Howard, I think, is a state building. It's not an FBI. The FBI's been in the McNamara building on Michigan.
Okay, but it's empty.
It's huge. You're right, but it's a huge state building, and you know they want to build more housing on the river, supposedly. You know, they're going to be at a lot of good chance it's going to be at market rates where people are going to be paying top dollar. I mean, the ones that were built with the Joe Louis, I think the apartments are going like for a minimum like $4,000 a month.
You know, there's an empty apartment building right behind it, right?
Do we all remember COVID, and we all went home, we all worked from home, and there was a toilet paper shortage, right? And some people were hoarding it, and that probably explained some of it. But the best explanation I ever read as to why there was a shortage of toilet paper, it wasn't just hoarding. It was the fact that the toilet, because there's the same number of people, we all poop however many times a day and need the same amount of toilet. It wasn't like there was more of a demand for toilet paper. And what I finally read that explained it to me is there's two arms of the toilet paper industry. One makes rolls for the home and one makes rolls for the office. And if you use your office bathroom, you know that it's generally not just the standard home roll. It's like a big one and a big dispenser, or they've got, you know, various other stuff.
Not a lot of ply.
Yeah, not a lot of ply.
It's like Betamax and VHS, Nancy.
Exactly. And
it's
so,
not even close.
And so,
Third world.
you know, what we're having, I think what we're going through now is the same imbalance where we desperately need housing, and we can't get housing unless it's luxury housing because there's a huge profit margin in that. We really don't need any more office space. And yet, you know, I mean, keep in mind the Hudson's building was conceived pre-COVID, and that's the reason that it's smaller than it was originally planned to be. I mean, the idea was the sky's the limit, build more offices. Well, then we all went home and realized, you know, working at home is not so terrible. I mean, it's not so bad, and so more people are now working at home. I mean, I don't think that's Steve's office that he's at, and I don't think either of you guys are in your offices. So my point is that you shouldn't be subsidizing to the tune of $250 million a bad decision that was made worse by COVID by Dan Gilbert. I mean, I love the plan. I think it's, you know, when they first started talking about tearing down part of the RenCen, I thought, oh no, but I see it now. I mean, they could take out the two river facing or the two sub towers closest to the river, make that all a park, you know, put retail in the Winter Garden, all that stuff. I mean, that could be very nice, but Jesus, you know.
But look, here, let's be honest about what's really going on here. The Trumps, the right wants to cut taxes and provide less services to whom? The poor. You know, they want to gut
everybody else except for the
well, not everybody else. That's my point, Nancy.
Right.
Is nobody? How many politicians have you heard come out and say this is a terrible idea because this is corporate welfare? We're not going to support this because GM already and Gilbert already have enough money. Mm-hmm. Now, look, I don't know if this is good policy or bad policy. I don't know if the government should or shouldn't be contributing. I'm not taking a position on this, but I am taking a position on the hypocrisy of saying we've got to reduce taxes and we've got to reduce services to the people who do not have the means to provide their own basic needs.
Right.
At the same time, paying for General Motors to move, if that's one of the ways you want to put it. They can move those issues around. What they pay for If they pay for something else, GM has more money to move people. So, but that's the point. This is social welfare. This is corporate welfare.
Very much so.
You can make an argument that it's a good idea, but you can't make the argument that that's a good idea while you're cutting people who you were forced to be born because you opposed any birth control and you opposed abortion to not have food after they're born. Right. That's not right to life.
Well, the irony, Bill, is, I mean, these subsidies to people like Gilbert and GM, it's usually what they call socialism. But it seems as though, I mean, even though that's the wrong use of the word. But speaking of which, I mean, here we all are, ensconced not in regular offices and being together today. And so many more people are probably tuning in remotely. There's another individual who's going to be starting his new job, not in an office, but behind bars. Monroe County Commissioner Mark Brandt is going to be starting his term in the Hoosgow.
The Hoosgow.
No, it's a federal prison. The Hoosgow, I think Steve will tell you that there's a big difference between being in county jail and being in federal prison.
He has told us this several times over the course of this show because of the Crumbley case, right, Steve?
Right. It's absolutely right. When I read the article, I mean, it was hilarious that a guy gets himself elected and he's going to be serving it, sitting over there in a facility, but he'll be at a camp. He's only got, what did he get, a year and a day, something like that?
I think he got 18 months, didn't he?
I think he got 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
He won't be there all that long, and he'll be able to participate as much as he was participating if he was sitting there in the council thing. Because what the hell does he know about it anyway?
I heard the rest of the Board of Commissioners down in Monroe County absolutely refuse to visit for conjugal purposes. So,
hey guys, can we do the meetings on Zoom and during my out of the cell time? It's like,
you know what?
I mean,
it's interesting. He got convicted of leasing land illegally for marijuana growing. And he was put, when it became obvious that he was going to get indicted or whatever, he tried to withdraw his name from the ballot, and it was too late. And he got elected, I think, by 90% or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing that happened here with JFK Jr., Allan. Apparently, he couldn't get his name off the ballot for some people.
By the way, I do think that there's a silver lining here. I think that this guy may be trying to establish a precedent for how we handle Trump's legal problems. Why couldn't he be in a federal prison while being president?
Amen. I agree.
You know, that would be the first time that they'd play Hail to the Chief first thing in the morning over at Danbury prison. Hey, Fish, you mentioned the Ethan Crumbley case, and there's, I guess, an update on that a judge has denied Ethan Crumbley's request for a new sentence. So what does that all mean?
I don't think that he's actually denied it yet. I mean, when I saw that on your list of things, I looked it up. It appears to me that he still got it under advisement. What he denied, they wanted to delay it until June of next year. The appellate defender office did. And the judge said, no, that's too long. And he gave him a date. I thought it was the end of this month, quite frankly, to get out whatever it is they want to get in. Basically, what they're trying to say, Judge Rowe had about a 4-day hearing, if I'm not mistaken, when he decided whether to sentence him as an adult, because he was only 15 when this happened. They're saying that there are more things that should have been brought to the court's attention, and that they wanted to bring these things in, and therefore he's just a child, blah, blah. They make the same arguments pursuant to the Miller case, which is the United States Supreme Court case that talks about the standard for sentencing somebody as an adult. But what the judge said at that time, there was a quote from that in whatever I was reading this morning. He said he had considered all of these things, but the fact that this was so well planned out, it wasn't an instinctive thing that he happened to have a gun around and some guy walked in front of him and he shot him. The fact that the amount of planning that went into it and the amount of premeditation that went into it, that he's not going to change his mind as to sentencing him as an adult. The other thing that they were raising, though, was that because he was so young, I mean, he pled to first-degree murder. And somebody tells him, I presume, the lawyers told him first-degree murder only carries one type of sentence in the state of Michigan, and that's mandatory life in prison. So they were trying to say that he was too young, he didn't really understand. The problem is, we all know because we've seen the case. He had no defense. It didn't make any difference if he went to trial. 12 people would have walked in the back. 15 minutes later, they'd have come out and convicted him of first-degree murder. So I don't believe Judge Roe's going to do anything different, but I didn't see anything today that says that he's already decided it, that he'd already denied it.
Okay, thanks for that update on that. Interesting case out of Texas. It looks like the Texas committee will not be examining maternal deaths that have occurred since the 2022 Dobbs U.S. Supreme Court case because apparently they don't want to. They do not want to get into the idea of seeing how many women have in fact been fatally affected by this. Yep, Fish.
I thought when I read that, I think that's probably the worst thing I've seen with all of this Dobbs-related stuff. The fact that they would do that in a state the size of Texas, because who knows how many deaths there really were because of this. But the fact that they would do that, and my guess is it's probably a committee filled with men, right, who said, we're not going to do this. It's just astounding that, going back to what we were talking about to begin with, that people have voted for this guy. And for these kinds of people, how can any female cast a vote for people like that? And obviously they did, because there they are. But I thought that was the worst thing I've seen of anything.
It's kind of like the way we can't do research on gun deaths in this country, because it's because they don't want to know what the results might be. They don't want to hear it. And that's exactly what that is. And you're right. But there are an awful lot of women out there who think this will never affect them, or they're, I would welcome a child, even if it was out of wedlock, even if it was my daughter, even if it was interracial, I would welcome that. And they never see themselves in a situation where their daughter or themselves or another woman close to them is miscarrying a 16-week fetus, who has absolutely zero chance of surviving outside, but still has a little bit of a heartbeat and is bleeding out in a hospital parking lot. And, they just don't think that's ever going to happen. And if it does happen, well, that might be God's will. That's just Jesus calling her home, and I'm sorry, I will stop with the community theater accents here, but I'm just.
No, Nancy.
What Nancy's talking about is very real, and it's not limited to this issue. I'm sure that Steve and that any attorney will tell you, every attorney will tell you that one of the greatest ironies in the practice are the people who come in and say, I hate people who bring lawsuits, and then their child is killed in a car accident.
Right. Yeah.
And it's amazing that people can't be more empathetic, because if you're empathetic, if you have the ability to put yourself in other people's shoes, your position on policy really does begin to change.
I would say, let me say this too. What Nancy said is absolutely true about all kinds of things, but particularly, I thought you were going to say this, Bill. You get people who are the most rabid, pro-police, anti-criminal defendants, blah, 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 until their cousin gets charged with the crime, or they get charged with the crime. What Nancy said, and I think this is absolutely true, I think a lot of people are unable or unwilling to ever think, God, I might be in that position, or my son might be in that position, or my niece might be in that position. And that's what you see throughout our society. People who have their noses up in the air walking around like this, they figure it could never happen to them.
The lack of empathy is really the most depressing part of this entire thing, I think, is that people are acting like they have it coming to them. And these women who are against it, they don't go to homeless shelters and see women with infants. They don't see the kids running around with maybe one meal a day, and they're going to complain about giving meals in schools, and they complain about diapers, and they complain about hygiene products. And it's really, women as a baby feeder and nothing else. But once those babies, this is the thing, is that once they're born, we're not talking either about the rate of poverty for women that is going to go sky high when women are consistently made to carry children that nobody wants to take care of, and how that's going to make Texas a much better place. Or Michigan. Right now we have a wall against Michigan, and we better make sure that we keep our majority, what's left of it, in this state.
Well, the irony is not lost that Elon Musk moved to Texas, so that I think says it all.
How many kids does that creep have? It's,
So
I don't think
40.
he didn't have a house. I thought that was like one of the weird things about him. He's like the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. He just floats around sleeping in his rich friend's spare room. Ask the president-elect what he's sucking up at Mar-a-Lago right now.
They had
ketamine binges and everything else. He's like ordering off the specials menu. Go ahead.
They actually had a chateau in France, by the way, Nancy. And also, I need to commend you. Your Southern accent, the last time I heard one as spot on as that was Dustin Hoffman in 1982 in Tootsie.
That's not really Texas, though. I mean,
you're wrong, Dr. Brewster. I'm very much proud of being a woman. But anyway, you got me doing it. Well, fingers crossed, 48 hours later, and not perfectly so by any means, it looks like there's a ceasefire that's been reached in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. Small favors, to be sure, and I'm not sure if that'll completely alleviate the suffering on either side of the border. But do you think that there is maybe more of a push by the Biden administration to get something resolved regarding Gaza in the remaining 6 weeks? Yeah, Fish.
I don't know what push there can be. The only push that'll work when you're dealing with Bibi Netanyahu is to keep the ammunition and the weaponry from going there. There's no discussion that's going to work with him. And from what I've been reading and from my communications with my Israeli sister, this business was settling with Hezbollah. To me, it's the opposite. They're not even thinking about doing anything in Gaza other than what they've been doing, which is just
I saw a documentary called The Bibi Files, which really makes it even more cynical that this is very much about his political survival. That there were ample efforts to scale it down. So, well, I want to go ahead.
I'll just say real quickly, from day one, there's been no day after plan by Netanyahu, and as you say, part of it just to keep in office as long as the war is going, his political future, and then Trump comes in, and who knows what happens from there. He's trying to say, I think a couple of weeks ago, he said, this is going to be a gift. The treaty with Hezbollah is going to be a gift to Trump. He's sucking up to Trump and Trump is a suck up. So I don't know. It's a fucking mess. So,
but by the way, the documentary also shows that in his family, Bibi's not the most odious person. His wife and his son are.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
They're even worse.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, the treaty, the ceasefire treaty with Hezbollah isn't much of a ceasefire treaty. Netanyahu reserved the right to attack anytime they felt threatened. God knows what that means. That's number one. Number two, the problem with this discussion, as most discussions, is what we aren't talking about, or what is really going on the ground, both in Lebanon and in Gaza. Just before the ceasefire took effect, they had more bombings than had occurred on any given day. One of my clients happened to call me, and he had built a home for his father in Beirut. It was completely destroyed, and sent pictures. There was one Seikaly that I know of still left in Gaza, Mohammed, and he sent me pictures yesterday of his 11th home in Gaza. His wasn't a home, 11th place he was being totally destroyed. We simply don't, this lack of empathy issue, we don't take into account what people are really going through. Right. And I think there's little doubt, you can talk about him staying in office. I think there's little doubt what's going to happen is Gaza is going to be annexed, because who could stay there? And they'll sweep it clean and it'll become part of Israel, which will just create another 10 generations of Palestinians hell-bent on destruction of Israel.
But I agree. I agree with
That's
that.
very much true. Well, I want to go around the horn. Or you can call it a cornucopia, given the season, as Thanksgiving has just concluded. And I want to see what people's sense of gratitude and thanks are. Does anyone have something that they'd like to contribute? to be thankful for? Not all at once.
I would say, gratitude. I'm gracious. I have gratitude to be here, to be able to speak to you. I look at the simple things. I have gratitude for my son, for the position that I'm in, wherever it may be. I'm comfortable. I'm eating. I'm warm. I have people in my life. I'm exceptionally lucky, and I recognize that. I think gratitude is wonderful. I recognize it every day, because every day starts hard sometimes, and you have to remember what you have in your life.
You've maintained your animal sexiness well into your dotage. That's something to add.
Thank you. That's a great term. I appreciate that. But anyway, wonderful. Yeah. But truly, so I have gratitude for everybody here. The Lions. Can't be their lineage. So yeah, yes, I have simple wants and needs, and they are filled, and I'm happy for that.
Nancy, I wake up every morning thinking maybe we'll get through one of these episodes without a Boogie Nights reference, but it's just not happening. But go on.
Well, I guess I would say the older I get, and this has become a complication at Christmas time, because the people in my family are like, what do you want for Christmas? It's like, there's really nothing that you can put in a bag and put a bow on that I want for Christmas. And it ties in with this. I'm grateful for the people in my life, the ones that have stuck with me through this and that, the various communities that I draw on for sustenance, mostly, mental. The people that I hang with, this group here on Fridays has just become this is kind of something I look forward to. It's like, tomorrow's Friday. We're going to do the week that was, and then the weekend can begin. So there's, it's the people in my life and the people who enrich my life, and almost all of them do. So.
All right. Fish.
Well, again, you put me third, and the first two people basically said the same thing that I'd be thinking about. I'm particularly thankful and grateful for the kids. My kids, they're really doing well. And I see other people who don't have that situation, and there's nothing tougher, in my view, than if you had troubles with your children, whatever the troubles are. I'm not talking about whether they make 80 grand or 78 grand. I mean, bad things. And I think that's at the top of my list. And then after that, I kind of go along with Joel. You wake up in the morning, I get to the gym every day. That's something that I'm grateful for. I see an awful lot of people that are walking on canes. Some really, really great athletes as they've gotten older. Some guys I'm on Facebook with, guys who played in the NBA for 10 years that can barely get around. They're in a wheelchair. The health, when you think about it, especially as we all get older, health is at the top of your list right after your family. So that'd be my thing. I think of it every morning when I get in the car to drive to the gym, that goddamn, I'm lucky at 75 years of age to be able to still do that, even if I can't shoot a 3 anymore. I mean, that's just one of those things.
Steve, I keep telling people you can. Don't say that. Do not say that.
Wait a minute.
Keep your mouth shut on that issue. I tell people you can still shoot 3s. Don't go.
Wait a minute. Fish, back when you played basketball, they had 3s?
Well, they did not have 3s. In fact, as I've told you, when we were discussing Caitlin Clark, if they'd have had 3s, Maravich would have averaged 8 more points. He'd average 53 a game.
Absolutely would have. All right, Barb.
Oh boy, I'm a really lucky woman. I have all my sisters, and I have my brother. I have friends that I can count on, friends that are moral and active and are going to be out in the streets with me in the coming months and bailing me out of jail. I'm grateful to all of you. I'm grateful to Allan for having me. I am grateful for science that I can see, which I couldn't have said this time last year. And I'm kind of happy it snowed today because it needed to do that. So, and music. I am grateful for good, wonderful music all day long.
I'm even thankful for that invisible science called gravity there, Barb. Bill.
Saeed, I love you. That's one of the things I'm grateful for. I am going to echo what other people have said. Look, I'm a very lucky guy, and I do a gratitude list every single day. You look back on my life, and the odds of anybody thinking I would ever end up where I am, virtually non-existent. And here I am. I've had a great career and I've had good fortune, and I've been luckier than most. A lot of it for me is about family, not only about the ones that are from blood and bone, but the ones I've chosen, including my own son who's adopted, including guys like Allan Lengel, who occasionally I disagree with, but who I love just like a brother. And I've enjoyed being with all of you. I love many of our regular followers like Layla, and it's been an honor to be part of this show. And I'm lucky, I'm grateful for the fact that I've maintained a relatively speaking positive attitude despite what I view as the darkest times in American history, certainly since my life and during my life. It's been very, very difficult for me since the election, but I'm working on a renewed commitment to do everything I can to try and maintain what we can about our belief system, at least. And so I'm very grateful for where we are and where we can be and where I am.
And there are millions on our side. I mean, don't believe this mandate bullshit. It's like there are millions of people on our team.
It's a
I'm more concerned about the millions that are on the other side.
I know, but we're not the Confederacy.
The fact that they're in charge.
That's my point. So.
I'm grateful for the show. I always tell people it's an hour where you forget about the world while you're talking about the world. And I always feel that way. I'm grateful for this group. It's been really great. I'm grateful for all the support, friends, family. I've got a wealth of really great, amazing friends. I'm grateful that my parents, were Holocaust survivors, who gave me such great perspective about humor and life and strength. And I am learning, as Steve talks about health, I mean, having torn my quadricep tendon and having a physical therapist coming shortly, I've taken away, the very basics of just being able to hop in the shower and jump out of bed quickly and all that. And I'm learning a new gratitude for, the menu shrunk, and I have to appreciate what's still on the menu. I mean, I'm not paralyzed. Hopefully I'll be able to, come back and, through physical therapy and all that. So I'm grateful that I am where I'm at, and I'm still able to do the show while I'm still laying here with a full leg brace on. So
it's like when you're in when you're in a car accident and your car is totaled, but you walk away and everybody says, "You were so lucky."
Yeah.
Like, you were really lucky. I wouldn't have totaled the fucking car.
Right.
Anyway, I get your point.
Yeah.
Well, no, Nancy, then you ask him, I hope you weren't talking to the car. I just want to express some gratitude, first of all, to you guys on the show. I mean, I love all of you. And also those of you who are not on the show that we sometimes have rotate through. I mean, I think this is sort of the OG, but other people like Bev and when are we getting Mike Ratai back? People ask me.
He wants to come back.
Yeah. But also obviously, friends and family. But I do have to say that for me, what I'm really grateful for this year is the 86 and a half years I had with my dad. Losing him earlier this year, and thank you for all of you with your support during that. But just, it brings into specific relief just what people mean to you when you realize that split second that you want to reach for the phone and be like, oh man, can you believe what somebody said? Or can you believe the lines, something else I'm grateful for? And then you kind of catch yourself, but you know that they're never far and they're never really gone. And whatever you wanted to say to them, it probably reaches them anyway. So thank you for that. And I don't even know how the hell I'm going to say. Yeah, Bill.
One last thing. Nobody mentioned it. We've all got to be grateful to the Chicago Bears for losing yesterday.
Yeah.
Just got fired.
I'm not sure you can say that was our win, but I am very grateful.
Did he get fired?
He just got fired. Just came over the line. My son just
really?
Breaking news. Fish.
I knew that was going to happen when he announced that he was glad he made that decision. He was
Yeah.
by that
Always
decision.
wise to walk away with a timeout in your pocket. Never a problem.
Sorry,
Fish.
Steve.
I just did notice, by the way, that all of us, when we were thanking people, none of us mentioned our spouses, which means we've been married. We've been married. I see yours are right in there, Barb, which means we've all been married a long time.
We included it when we said family. Steve, if you don't get me out of this jam,
Relationship.
you know that I was including Joni when I said family. You know it.
How dare you?
And by the way,
Thanks a lot, Steve.
I included Barb's spouse in that too. So,
Thank you.
all right.
For me, I love this man.
There's absolute, and by the way, I'm also thankful that I still have my hearing for listening to music. Yes.
Yes.
There's no easy way to segue to this. So, Allan, let's just go to our next segment.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Okay, in deference to him, because I know we're well over the time. Fish, you go first.
Well, usually we all try to make it somebody that's of some significance, either in politics or in law or something. But to me, the guy who just got fired, he's my Schmuck of the Week. I've never seen anything like that ever in all the years of watching and participating in sports. I can't remember his name, but the Chicago Bears coach, he was the Schmuck of the Week, and he very much deserved whatever happened to him today.
He's my hero. What do you mean, Schmuck of the Week? He's my
It's
hero.
our Thanksgiving gift.
Well, those aren't mutually exclusive. So, Barb.
Elon Musk and his little social media platform X, which has lost something like half of their subscribers, and Blue Sky over 20 million.
It is the sewer these days.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I have been looking for alternative medias.
Blue
I
Sky.
think I have found quite a bit of it on Blue Sky. I'm real happy about that.
Yeah.
And we'll see, but it's a little bit less ugly. And once you get through the OnlyFans, because all of a sudden I have hot women that want to be my friend, and I'm not used to that.
What? I asked you to be a friend, and you added me.
You were the only hot woman that I accepted, Nancy. But yeah, that's it. So it's up.
I see the look of resignation in Bill, Joel, and Steve's eyes when you said that. So, Bill. I'll go to Joel then. Bill's.
I got it. Mine is going to be Jamison Williams for making like the boneheaded mistake. This is like Lions of old when you have a nice play, you're moving, you're about to seal the game, and then you have just a stupid penalty that's unnecessary, unsportsmanlike conduct when you toss the ball in the opposing player's face. Like, what are you doing, man? This is not the time. Ever there's a time, but certainly not now. Almost cost the Lions a game. You're lucky that the other Schmuck of the Week is Eberfluss, who was without question the worst clock manager ever in the history of football. Nobody's ever made a mistake, I think, as grievous as that one with that much time left. So those are my two schmucks. Also, Boris Epstein, because I just love saying the name because he's some fractured tables. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
And selling positions, pay to play. The guy's a keeper. So that guy is also
Looks like a mobster.
It's like watching The
He is a
Sopranos
mobster.
every day.
He is a
Opening the paper, you know. It's like who's kicking up to the boss and who's not. So
Boris Epstein's a great.
I've got a quartet: Lev, David, Yehuda, Niv, Ovdat, and Nir Kenner, which I suppose you all have figured out by now are for Israeli tech bros whose company Spines Publishing aims to disrupt book publishing. They're starting a campaign for $5,000. You can essentially publish or commission a book that will be entirely, and I mean entirely, produced by artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Of course, you know, it's always the foot in the door, the Campbell's nose under the tent. Let's start with something like, you know, auto repair manuals or something, which will take money away from tech writers and so forth. But pretty soon, I think within a year, we're going to be seeing like really badly written genre novels that are going to be coming out of this. And you know, it serves to essentially take
newspapers,
human activity for which human beings are paid and pay their taxes and pay their bills and generate for the economy, replacing it with fucking bullshit. And these 4 Israeli dudes are going to get rich off of it. And I think if they should understand what a schmuck is. So there you go. By the way, can I also say Lev, David, Yehuda, Niv, Ovdot, and Nir Kenner sound like names that were thought up by an AI. There.
Yep.
Wow. Bill.
Yeah, I want to go back to something Steve said earlier in the show, because I agreed with it. The Texas committee that won't look into the members of the Texas committee that won't look into deaths as a result of the Dobbs decision. They're my schmucks of the week. Anybody who can ignore such a serious issue and talk about the sanctity of life deserves to be schmucks of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
And by the way, Joel, I cannot understand your schmuck of the week. Williams, he carries a gun in the car without a license to carry a concealed weapon, and you think he has judgment? Yeah. What? Who would have ever thought that?
Oh my God, yeah, and he's so talented. That hurtling was like, oh my God, it's beautiful to watch. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, listen. Hats off to Todd Flood. No charge there. That was pretty good lawyering.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Allan.
I'm going to go with Mark Zuckerberg for his visit down to Mar-a-Lago. Not only the visit itself, but what he said in terms of acknowledging, saying that Trump is part of a new movement that seems to be spreading or whatever. It doesn't mean it's a good movement. It's like acknowledging, just sucking up to this guy. We can't suck up to this guy. People have to stand up for what's right and wrong. It's like he's not a criminal. He's still a criminal. The charges, he found the most imaginative way to get his criminal charges dismissed. And Zuckerberg is just shame on that guy. When you have so much, to the credit of people like Taylor Swift and Eminem, who say, I don't give a fuck if you don't like my political views, fuck you. I've got enough money. I've got enough fame. It doesn't matter. And a guy like Zuckerberg, how much more fucking money do you need?
The difference, Allan, is they are artists and he is just basically a tech bro. Yeah. So there. That's the difference.
Disgraceful.
He's got no soul. They do.
Shonda.
It's a Shonda.
All right, Saeed.
You are Saeed.
You're on
muted.
silent. You're muted.
Okay.
It's a very unusual situation there.
I had to switch out my AirPods. It was technical. It was Apple, not Meta. So I've got two. One is, since I'm transatlantic, former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who has blamed the Church of England for creating a nation of fatzos. Instead of apparently addressing the spiritual needs of the congregants, he has said that the Church of England has enabled them to load up on baked goods because they were farting on about Brexit or whatever, instead of talking about the evils of junk food. I clearly can see. What's that? What's that, Nancy?
I didn't say anything.
No, I said, does he have a mirror?
Well, that's the thing. That, I mean, apparently there's no reflectivity for Mr. Johnson, or either that, or he's just a really piss poor congregant. And the other one that's closer to home is none other than everyone's lovely, lovely Ivanka Trump, who goes on Truth Social because there's nothing else to talk about and says, "Can you name an invention made by a Muslim that changed the world?" Let's see. There is quarantine algebra, university, kerosene lamps, surgery, latitude, sailing, toothbrushes, and coffee, just to name a few. None of which I think she's either heard of or can spell. So Ivanka, I mean, I know that Daddy won again, and they finally let the gimp out of the box. But you should have stayed where you are. You're also my schmuck.
Awful.
Anyway, everybody, thank you for listening in and viewing in, and thank you for another great week that was. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you, by Muslim he means I just thank you for that. And thank you, as always, and with the last word, Allan.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week, everybody. Take care.
Good, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.